Ohio is an incredibly corrupt state. Sure, there are more corrupt states, but Ohioans should expect all three branches of our state government to be transparent, auditable, accountable to voters, and compliant with all legal and ethical requirements. And those requirements should be robust, monitored, publicly reported, and penalties for intentionally breaking them or ignoring them should be punitive. We should be setting the standard, leading the pack, not comparing ourselves to completely corrupt states like Louisiana, Illinois, and New York, resting on the argument that we're not as bad as them. Politicians love to do this. When they do, we need to call them out, ridicule them, embarrass them, make them pay a price for taking advantage of us. It's impossible to summarize where we need to shore up our anti-corruption efforts in a short video. Ohio is a target-rich environment for battling corruption. So consider this the first of a series that may span several videos. Like we're seeing at the federal level, Ohio has its own USAID-like organizations. Ohio has its own NGO-like organizations. Ohio has its own deep state machine. We're going to explain 18 of them today to kick off this series on corruption. Those being JobsOhio and Ohio's 17 Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or MPOs. Our goal here is twofold. First, introduce you to some organizations in Ohio who are spending your tax dollars that you may not know about but should. And second, to pique your interest enough to inspire you to do some of your own digging to better understand these organizations. Let's first talk about JobsOhio. Northeast Ohio's Matt Urbas, in his Substack, wrote about JobsOhio, and he did a really nice job. The link to Matt's article, as well as the link to its cross-published version at the Ohio Register, are included in the show notes, or goodies as we call them on social media. Matt wrote, JobsOhio is a private nonprofit corporation that came into existence during the Kasich administration in 2011. Most states have a department that works on economic development, using state funds to perform various functions under that nebulous term. Typically, these include using grants or loans to companies to invest in new capital expenditures in the state with the hope of creating new jobs or luring them from across state lines. Prior to 2011, this was a function of the Ohio Department of Development. In addition, the state's sole control over liquor sales was also under the purview of a state agency. The idea behind JobsOhio can broadly be outlined as follows. The state of Ohio turned over operation of liquor sales to this private nonprofit. A subsidiary called the JobsOhio Beverage System now runs the state liquor agencies across the state. The period of the lease was set at 25 years, 2013 to 2038, and for this privilege, JobsOhio agreed to pay the state $1.51 billion. The profits earned from the sales of liquor are then used by JobsOhio to engage in the aforementioned economic development. The state continues to collect all the taxes on liquor it normally would, and additionally gets 75% of the profits in excess of 3% growth over the prior year. Now here's the rub as Matt continues. This arrangement appeals to Republican politicians because it enables them to claim that no tax dollars are being used to fund economic development activities. JobsOhio's status as a private entity gives it the veneer of independence from the stink of being a government operation, although members of JobsOhio's board of directors are all appointed by the governor. Jobs Ohio is also explicitly exempt from public records requests, and critics have long held that this lack of transparency means there is little oversight in how grants are awarded by elected officials and none from the public at large. With Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, affectionately referred to as DOJ, exposing waste and canceling contracts with nonprofits at a rate never seen in government, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. advocating for radical transparency in government and the nonprofits who get access to massive sums of government money, is Jobs Ohio now an anachronism, a creature created in a climate of blind trust in public-private partnerships, quickly vanishing in favor of demands for actual accountability to citizens? We encourage you to read all of Matt's article and then do some internet searches of your own, or use an AI platform to summarize answers to your questions about Jobs Ohio. You might want to ask about Jobs Ohio's exemption from public oversight, Jobs Ohio's loan forgiveness to First Energy. Yup, you heard that right, that First Energy. Privatization and reduced accountability of public-private partnerships, Jobs Ohio's network partners, Jobs Ohio's premature 15-year contract extension with the state of Ohio, and Jobs Ohio's conflicts of interest. We'll likely do a deeper dive into Jobs Ohio in another video dedicated entirely to it. Now, let's talk about Ohio's 17 Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or MPOs. MPOs are responsible for overseeing the regional transportation planning process in urbanized areas with populations over 50,000, as designated by the U.S. Census Bureau. The concept of MPOs emerged during the construction of the Eisenhower interstate system in the 1950s and 1960s. Initially, state highway departments often made decisions about interstate highway routes with little local input, leading to significant community disruptions. This lack of local involvement and the recognition of broader regional impacts spurred the need for more cooperative planning efforts. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1962 was pivotal in establishing MPOs. It mandated that for any urbanized area with a population exceeding 50,000, transportation projects receiving federal funds must be based on a continuing, comprehensive, and cooperative, 3 C's, planning process. This requirement effectively created MPOs as regional bodies to coordinate transportation planning across local jurisdictions. And now diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the Green New Deal. This was partly due to subsequent federal legislation such as the Highway Act of 1973, which further emphasized planning for environmental and community impacts, and the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, ISTEA, of 1991, which provided MPOs with more funding and decision-making power. Clearly, this growth of an unelected, quasi-governmental body mirrors federal organizations like USAID and NGOs. There are 17 MPOs in Ohio, each serving different urbanized areas. Notable MPOs in Ohio include the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, MORPAC, for Central Ohio, including Columbus, and the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, NOACA or NOACA, in the Cleveland area. A link to a list of all Ohio MPOs is included in the show notes or goodies. Here are some of the concerns Grassroots Ohioans have of Ohio's MPOs. Unelected and unaccountable decision-making. MPOs control millions in federal and state transportation funds, yet their boards are not directly elected by the public. Local governments appoint representatives, but many officials are far removed from voter oversight. Backroom deals and limited transparency in project selection have led to criticisms of shadow governance, slow and inefficient processes. MPOs often take years or even decades to approve and implement projects due to lengthy studies, stakeholder consultations, and bureaucratic red tape. Transportation projects require extensive public input, environmental reviews, and interagency coordination, leading to delays. MPOs often duplicate efforts already handled by state and local transportation agencies. Political influence and special interests. MPO boards often include members from private sector interests, real estate developers, and major employers, raising concerns about corporate influence over transportation planning. Road building lobbies, construction firms, and suburban developers can push projects that benefit their business interests rather than taxpayers. MPOs sometimes prioritize wealthier suburbs over urban core areas with greater transit needs and vice versa. This stems from politicization of MPOs, funding inequalities, and disconnected priorities. Small towns and suburban areas often feel neglected because MPOs focus on larger metropolitan areas. Conversely, urban residents argue that MPOs favor car-dependent policies that don't benefit those who rely on public transit. MPO decisions can be misaligned with local community priorities, as they must juggle federal funding rules, state policies, and regional power dynamics. These are the complaints of a system working as it was designed legally, but then factor in the potential for politicization of and corruption in MPOs. One example of this is the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, or NOACA, which has been noted for attempts to incorporate economic equity into project evaluations. You heard that right. An MPO managing potentially millions of dollars in funding is pushing a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, or DEI, for roads and bridges. I kid you not. As well, this group also pushes hard the Green New Deal agenda, with constant talk of climate action planning and a climate pollution reduction program. You can check it out on NOACA's website. Links to it are in the show notes and goodies. And check out the list of their board. How in the world can you possibly get anything done with this many people on your board? 48 people, 46 voting, and 2 non-voting board members. This is insane. And to top it off, 24% of the board are not elected representatives of we the people. We are going to be doing a comprehensive expose on NOACA on how it's being rigged and manipulated to accomplish a political agenda without voter approval or oversight. The story is a doozy. It's complicated and nefarious. We've just started peeling the big onion, which is waste, corruption, and fraud in Ohio. We hope this video accomplished our 2 objectives. 1, introducing you to 18 organizations in Ohio you may not know about, but should. And 2, piquing your interest enough to inspire you to do some of your own digging to better understand JobsOhio and Ohio's 17 metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs. This video is brought to you by the Grassroots Freedom Initiative, or GFI for short. If you're not already on our email and text lists, please be sure to join our network of thousands of Ohioans. It's easy, free, and we won't ask you for money. Visit GFIOhio.com and click the Join Us button in the upper right-hand corner of any page, or text the letters GFI to 66866 and follow the prompts. And please be sure to find and follow us on YouTube and Rumble. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give us a like to be made aware when we post new content. Thanks for watching. Please remember to stay informed and get engaged.